Well, the other ones really came after us. We've been around since 1918. A lot of people think there are so many Jewish groups because Jews need to be presidents of something, and that way you get to have more Jews acting as leaders. And that's one reason. I think that's a very valid reason. But there is something very different about the American Jewish Congress than any other of the Jewish major national groups. And what's different about it is that we take on tasks that are not merely important, but they're important, and we can find a path within that issue to make a difference. Making a difference in a substantive way in our lives, and not just having an idle intellectual discussion, is what I think distinguishes us from other groups. We have a long history of using the court system and have been known as the Attorney General of the Jewish people. And through the 60s and 70s, desegregation, prayer in school, many important topics were argued and won by the American Jewish Congress. Today, I'm just going to mention 4 things that we're doing in a way that really does something. One that I was very involved with was anti-Semitism in France. After coming back from the Holocaust Museum, I spoke to Gary Ratner, and I couldn't believe that American Jewish leadership had been silent 60 years earlier than me. And I said, that would not happen on my watch. And we saw what was happening in France, and rather than just holding a meeting or doing a little press release, we took out advertisements feigning a boycott of the Cannes Film Festival, and that was a shot heard round the world. And the issue of anti-Semitism in France became front and center in major national and international news outlets. As a result of our effort, because what matters is not the press but the result, they've passed the harshest hate crime legislation in France of anywhere in the world. We have worked with French groups. In France, it was considered distasteful and improper to ever develop something such as AIPAC or the American Jewish Congress. And we have worked with groups in France to educate them, to teach them our techniques, so that there are now Jews in France working to protect the rights of the French people. We also have taken a very aggressive stance about energy, because we realize that energy independence is one of the most important things. Our petrodollars go to funding terrorism and buying weapons that are aimed at the United States and Israel. So we have worked with Israel, and we've gotten legislation passed in the United States for joint cooperation in the development of renewable fuels as a result of our efforts. You will hear more about the American Jewish Congress, but I want to try to keep it as much to the minimum as I can, because we're really here about our honorees. However, there is something to join. The American Jewish Congress is a membership organization. All of you have this on your seat. I would hope that you all enjoy the evening enough to want to be a part of this, to come to future events, to voice your opinion, to tell us what you think is important, to get our newsletter, and to attend other such great events. Before we move on, there's one person in the room who this event literally would not happen without. If it were not for Allison Taylor, stand up, Allison. Turn around, turn around. The dreams of today are the reality of tomorrow. And when she woke up with a crazy dream of getting 4 individuals such as she put together through this event, 5, did I say 4? I meant 5. We didn't look at her as if it was something that was impossible, because the American Jewish Congress repeatedly has taken on tasks that seem impossible, and we've made realities out of our dreams. Her partner in crime, the executive director of the American Jewish Congress, is Gary Ratner. Start to come up, Gary, while I introduce you. You will never meet any individual as committed to peace, as concerned for peace in the world and the welfare of Muslims and non-Muslims, Jews and non-Jews, as Gary Ratner. I'm very proud to have become his friend and to work beneath and alongside him here with the American Jewish Congress, and I really am honored to give you the microphone.
Thank you, Steve. Again, I'd like to apologize for some of the problems with the seating. After the article in the LA Times this morning, we did get quite a few calls from people who wanted to come to the event, and we did want to accommodate them. Tonight is an event about courage. Those who have shown it in the face of fatwas and other death threats, and those who refuse to show any courage in regards to the crucial issues of our time. Tonight, we honor 5 people who have exhibited exemplary courage in warning of the dangers of Islamism and jihad that threaten our way of life, and who offer voices of reason, tolerance, dialogue, and justice. We gather tonight as current events are testing our will to challenge the enemies of freedom. Our response will be the litmus test for whether we will be courageous and seek justice, or whether we will appease those who seek to destroy our way of life. The outcome of these battles will determine the future of everyone in this room. Today, if you're not aware of it, is Global Day for Darfur. This is a war in the Darfur region of the Sudan, where Arab Muslims are committing genocide against their black co-religionists. Unfortunately, most of the violence in the world is Muslims on Muslims. Darfur is the greatest crime being perpetrated in the world today. It is a war in which over 1 million people have died. Millions are on the verge of starvation. Hundreds of villages have been burned. Thousands of women and children have been raped and kidnapped. A war that is intensifying as I speak to you tonight. A war where the Muslim world not only does nothing to stop it, but supports the perpetrators, the government of Sudan and its armed militias. And I may add, I want to know, where are the Jesse Jacksons, Al Sharptons, and Louis Farrakhan's leading the million-man march on Washington demanding an end to the war in Darfur? Their silence is deafening. And where is the outcry in the Muslim world against what is happening in Darfur? Are they too busy protesting cartoons? So I ask everyone, where is the courage? Where is the justice? Where is the outcry against this violence? When we meet today, millions of Muslims are demonstrating against the Pope, and they're burning churches and killing priests and nuns. Why? Only because he was courting a 14th century Byzantine emperor engaged in a conversation with a Persian scholar, questioning what the meaning of jihad and whether Islam is only a religion that could be spread by the sword. And without understanding the context in which he was speaking, spontaneously millions of Muslims are protesting, and the leaders of the Muslim world are demanding an apology and even threatening global war. This is a time when Muslim leaders routinely denigrate Judaism, Christianity, and Hinduism. At a time when Muslim violence kills scores of innocent victims throughout the Muslim world, and when Muslims perpetrate terror that has killed thousands of innocent Europeans, Australians, and Americans. Have we forgotten the lessons of 9/11, Bali, Madrid, and London? Again, I ask, where is the courage? Where is the justice? Where is the outcry against this violence? And why is there death threats against the Pope now? For what he was only making a message that faith in God is irreconcilable with extremism and violence. And we meet tonight after a war just concluded against Israel that was started by a terrorist mini-state supported by countries openly committed to the destruction of Israel. These same forces of evil are carrying out attacks against Jews throughout the world. In Paris, on an average day, there are 12 attacks against Jews. The rise in anti-Jewish attacks in Britain, Australia, South America, Russia, and unfortunately, even here in America, is equivalent to what was going on in the 1930s. Tonight, there are leaders of major Muslim countries who deny the Holocaust, who spew forth the most virulent anti-Judaic lies since Hitler. Again, I ask, where is the courage? Where is the justice? Where is the outcry against this violence? Where are the Anwar Sadat standing up who are willing to sit down and negotiate peace with Israel? The American Jewish Congress, for almost 90 years, has valiantly fought for the core principles that underlie Western civilization and the American way of life. The AJ Congress is a leader in protecting your constitutional rights, the right of freedom of religion, free from coercion, or any group or government, the freedom of expression through speech, writing, and art, the freedom of thought. AJ Congress's storied history is one of fighting for equal rights and the protections of all races, ethnicities, and gender, especially the empowerment of minorities and women. It was the president of the American Jewish Congress who stood right next to Dr. Martin Luther King when he gave his I Had the Dream speech in 1963. And it was the American Jewish Congress a decade later that helped organize the women's rights movement in this country. And as regards Israel, the American Jewish Congress since 1918 has sought the creation of a Jewish homeland in his historic patrimony that God promised Abraham, where Jews have lived continuously for 3,000 years and have now come home to Zion. A Jewish haven where Jews arrive every day from countries as diverse as Ethiopia, Burma, France, and the former Soviet Union. There are Palestinian leaders who deny that our temples ever existed on the Temple Mount, that Jerusalem was never the capital of a Jewish sovereignty. Incredibly, these are the same people that many in the world demand Israel negotiate with in an attempt to find peace. How can you negotiate with people who deny your history and your legitimacy? AJ Congress has many important programs that ensure the security of Israel. Our Mayor's Conference, our Media Hasbara program for Israeli diplomats, our U.S.-Israeli Security Caucus, and as Steve said, our U.S.-Israel Energy Cooperation legislation, only to name a few. It was the American Jewish Congress that opened a dialogue with major Muslim countries, such as Pakistan, Jordan, and Indonesia. It was last year when President Musharraf of Pakistan spoke at our dinner in New York, and he enunciated his ideology of enlightened moderation as the alternative strain of Islam to Wahhabism. It was our organization that facilitated a meeting between the Indonesian and Israeli foreign minister for the first time. This event tonight is just another in our major initiative to create a dialogue with moderate Muslim reformers and those who want to see the religion of their birth return to its roots and not be hijacked by Saudi Arabian money or Salafist ideology. This is why we are honoring these 5 individuals, because they embody the same values as the American Jewish Congress. They offer hope for a better world, one where the great religions of the world will live in peace, and their followers can resolve their differences through dialogue and diplomacy, not terrorism and coercion. It is only fitting that we do so, especially when others in this city will be honoring an individual of questionable character, someone who has a record that does not promote better relations in this city, someone who has supported terrorist organizations and denies Israel's legitimacy. And I ask all of you, if you can, there's a meeting tomorrow during the day where the Los Angeles County Board of Human Relations will be discussing whether to give this award to Dr. Meah Hatut. And we should say no, and we should all be there and make our voices heard. This is why I'm proud that the American Jewish Congress had the vision to bring these 5 voices together in one room for the first time, voices that must be heard and heeded. I want to thank you all for coming this evening. I want to urge you to listen carefully to these brave individuals who are alerting us to the dangers for our children and generations to come. As the Irish philosopher Edmund Burke wrote many years ago, all that is necessary for the triumph of evil is that good men and women do nothing. I implore you to join us at the American Jewish Congress. Let's bring forth the courage and the justice to ensure the triumph of good over evil. Thank you very much.
Hey, Gary, come back up. Dan, come on, I want an ovation.
Thank you. We got a long program, so let's get on with it.
Thank you, Gary. It is a long program, so let's start hearing from the honorees, the reason that we're here today. Our first honoree is Wafa Sultan.